Now, actually, it's not even super high humidity, but it's enough humidity
Hmm.
that I actually have to like worry about that stuff. And it's like, oh, it is what it is. Um,
Where are you in Arizona?
I was in the Phoenix area, and then
Oh.
in 2013 I moved out here to New Hampshire. All right, it appears that we are live. So hey everyone. I mean, no one's watching right now, but someone will watch. Uh, we've got a great show ahead of us. Maybe I should just make it a little bit different and just hold on until I actually see people start popping in on the live thing, and then subject them to the intro graphic, which I know no one really wants to see, but it is what it is.
Where do we see people pop in?
If you get the YouTube video, then you can see in the live. If you go on the Digital Cash Network YouTube channel, you can actually see in the live chat. There's a live chat thing there. And
Oh.
so that's, usually though, what I like to do is I like to sometimes answer the questions in the live chat, but if they pay to ask the questions via the live super chat, I definitely answer. So if it's been too long and no one's answered yet, then oh, 5 people watching. Now I can say hey. So hey everyone, sorry for the little goofy start thing. Let me hit the intro and then we'll get going. So, hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another fantastic Dash podcast. I'm joined by the one and only enigmatic Quantum Explorer, also known as Samuel Westrich, but let's go with the cool one instead. How about that? Yeah, so how are you today?
Doing pretty good from Thailand.
Yeah, it's what, like 4 in the morning over there?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a little rough. Well, anyway, thanks for joining us. As we were just starting to get ready for this, I got an interesting email from Brian Foster about something about like a DashPay testnet wallet, and I was
Hmm.
so this has been something we've been looking forward to for a long time. For those who didn't know, at the end of the, and of course, correct with all these, correct me if I'm wrong, right? But at the end of the month, last month, Dash platform was finally, also known as Evolution, right? It was finally released onto testnet, full on testnet. Just, I mean, I'm oversimplifying things, but whack out some bugs and then release publicly, right? So at the same time, Dash platform, I mean, sorry, Dash Pay, the wallet, was supposed to be released at the same time, but then there's a few bugs or something like that. This is my understanding, at least. And then people are saying, "Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?" Well, now it's here. And let me see
Yep.
if I can accept a connection. But I'm not.
Yeah, I can give
Yes.
I
Are
can
you?
give like a quick explanation of how DCG works.
Yes.
For I'm sure people already know this, but we basically have three main teams. We have
Mm-hmm.
the the core team, which is our core inside core, which is really our
Mm-hmm.
C++ team.
Yeah.
But it's not so cool to call something a C++ team. So and C++ is a computing language for people that don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was our original, Dash Core wallet. Um, then later down the line, we created the mobile team, and the mobile team makes the iOS wallet and the Android wallet.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've had a platform team for the last 4 years, about 4 years, um, that make Dash platform. So the mobile team interacts with core and platform. And when we started on our endeavor to do DashPay, um, it the the mobile side of things went from supporting our layer one to also supporting layer two. So we added
Yeah.
in a lot of extra libraries in there, and I'll say this: in March of 2019, yes, I think it was March. I made the first payment between. two users using the technology that we're you know will be releasing, which will be called DashPay.
Nice.
And the usernames involved were Homer and Marge. So
Homer and Marge.
Homer made a payment to Marge.
So for the hair split detail on that, where did those payments occur? Was it the Dash testnet network? Was it something else? Was it on mainnet? Like how did that happen? Obviously, it's not none of the released stuff right now, but yeah.
Yeah. So internally, well, we have multiple devnets actually,
Mm-hmm.
and devnets started being a thing mid 2019, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And what a devnet basically is it's like a testnet, but it is made to be destroyed, created and then destroyed quite quickly. Um, and we basically have two devnets inside uh, our teams, one for the mobile team and one for the platform team.
Mm.
And inside the one for the mobile team, that's where it was made.
Nice.
So it no longer exists, sadly. I do have probably screenshots of it if it ever goes into a museum.
Yeah, but so basically, you figured out a way of doing this kind of thing, kind of like 2 years ago, more or less, almost 2 years ago, and then just
Yeah.
didn't have anything to make it work consistently, make it work publicly on things like that. Like there was just a lot of things that would prevented it from actually being like something that you could use within like 6 months. We'll get something together, and then everyone on Dash can do it.
Well, yes. There's also the fact that making a payment between two users is definitely not the same thing as like having a full UI around it that
Mm-hmm.
has no issues, right? So, like, yes, I made a payment between two users about a year ago, but try to make a second payment without it crashing.
That's a little harder.
Yeah. So it took quite a long time to get things stabilized, and but we're in a very good position in the mobile team in terms of Dash Pay.
Well, speaking of which, I just got mine set up, right? Very nice and snazzy. And if you could see on my profile, I got my profile set up with the name and the image and the little bio. Dashies they come. That's all I'm saying so far. I'm not doing the whole full one. If this is just testnet. And then I don't really have. I have one contact who's Troy Dash, who, by the way, did not update their picture yet. But I'm going to go hit Troy Dash. My activity is received a contact request and accept a contact request. And this is all on the Dash network, right? On the testnet network.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hit pay, hit that big pay button. I'm going to pay 0.7 Dash, which is, 72. Again, it's worthless testnet tokens. But then I can go pay. I'm going to do my little pin. You don't even get to know my testnet pin, sorry. And then boom. Bang,
And
there you
here
go.
I'm like, please work.
Yes, it better work. And so now when I open up Troy Dash's little profile under my contacts, I see that in my message history. Now, of course, on the blockchain, it's back and forth to like it's every single time it's a new address, new randomly generated address, just like the old days of crypto. But all our payments back and forth are all from the identity. It actually shows the identity. And that's
Mm,
something that, by the way, a lot of people have asked about is like the privacy of that kind of stuff. But basically, if I were to say the app were to crash and then my phone, or I throw my phone in the toilet in a fit of rage because, I invested everything in GameStop and then the whole thing crashed and then I got wrecked. And I'm mad. I destroy my phone. I'm like, oh no, I lost all my Dash. So I put my recovery phrase for my Dash identity back in. And then that contact hit not only the contacts, but then the transaction history between identities, not just on the blockchain. That's also saved, right?
everything's saved, yes.
Yes.
Everything basically comes derived from your seed phrase.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah.
Which I don't know if people really understand how huge that is because it's basically your entire like your entire payments and identity and all the data like that that's just not in the app. The app it just plugs into, but you can put it anywhere. And every other crypto username system does not have this. It doesn't have this. Like you can derive your entire identity from just those 12 words or whatever. Is it going to be 12 words?
Actually, it doesn't have to be 12 words. You can do 12, 15. It has to be a multiple of 3, between 12 and 24. Actually, I
Yeah.
think 9 works too, but I don't recommend 9. Not enough entropy.
Yeah, of course. And which, by the way, that reminds me of someone I know he has an old wallet that I believe he knows 10 of his 12 words. He like lost, or it's like he lost 4 words maybe. He knows exactly the order of which they lost him. And of course, that's really hard to brute force, but it's still like possible if you know a lot of it. It's just that like if he just had nine seed words or fewer, that would be like 6 seed words. That'd be a little bit rough.
So actually,
Mm-hmm.
this is actually a feature of the iOS wallet.
Oh, nice.
Um, that so this is kind of sad to admit, but in 2018, I released a version that in Japanese, the last seed word was cut off. So
Mm,
people, when they wrote down their words, and actually it happens sometimes in English too, would just have a word missing. And we got a lot of people that were like, okay, I have 11 words, what do I do? So actually, I built this system inside the
mm-hmm.
wallet that if you put in 11 words, it will automatically find the 12th one because that's trivial, right?
Yeah.
And then if you put in 10 words, that would take an hour, and it
Mm,
gives you the option for 10 words. It's 9 words would take like a year for the phone,
for the
right?
phone, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
so like 8 words would take
oh, it
like
would be.
exponentially crazy. But it, of
Oh,
course, that depends if you're just having the phone do it or if you're having some like professional service go run through it. But yeah.
yeah. One thing though is that iPhones are pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be actually surprised. Your iPhone is almost as quick as an iPhone released this year is probably as quick as a computer released 2 years ago. So the processors are insane.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy just how fast technology like leapfrogs in those ways. But yeah, it's a momentous time for sure with this whole thing. So
Hmm.
it might as well like jump into that part where we're talking about privacy between users in this case. And so
Yes.
basically,
Well, I can talk about that if you want.
yeah, go for it.
Um, because I got into Dash when it was known by another name, uh, the name that shall not be mentioned,
Yes,
and
the
actually
dark times.
back in the day, I was living in China, and I wanted to get some friends of mine that were Chinese investors into the project, and the
Hmm.
name was stopping them. They were like, "Oh yeah, this is cool. So you have this second tier of nodes that give that basically do things for the network, which later became the master nodes. Well, actually, I think the master nodes existed at that time, and yeah, so I actually was the one to propose the name change. But getting back to the thing at hand, so privacy is very important to me,
Hmm.
and it's very easy to do like, oh, one name sends to another name, but then
Hmm.
everybody knows that. And there are a lot of projects out there that aren't using like advanced cryptography. They aren't doing anything like really, really difficult, but they're like, oh yeah, here's a product. And maybe that has merit because they get they have a lot of funding, but their projects I don't think will really stand the test of time.
Yeah,
So,
so that whole the username thing does remind me because for the longest time, I was like, oh, this is great. Dash is going to have usernames. No one else has usernames and stuff like that. Oh, really quick, though, I did get a strange live super chat here. Hi, Quantum Meow. Who's a good kitty? Is this an in-joke or just something creepy?
I think that it's because there's a cat behind me here.
Okay,
Maybe.
that must be it. Just someone saying hi and paying me a couple bucks a Dash to do that. Well, thank you for that. It's a little strange, but
I don't know. Inside joke here.
Yeah, there's
unless
no.
It is.
Yeah,
Well.
That was just a strange thing. I think I know who did it. It might have been James Doe in the chat. He likes to troll me. So we're talking about the whole privacy of username. So I believe BitShares. I didn't use BitShares, but I believe BitShares and then Steam/Hive had usernames. And so, like, for example, when I was like liquidating some Hive, in their little block shares decks or whatever that I'm trying to like sell it with, I have to send it from @thedesertlinks to @Bittrex and then you have to add a little code in to specify like the invoice code thingy. And so it's like, all right, now if anyone looks at my username, they can just see I literally this dude sent money to Bittrex, and it just like wow, that's really bad, you know?
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, and then as far as I know, ENS domains and unstoppable domains and things like that, when they resolve, I've seen it when they put it in the wallet. Like you put in like, you put in like QuantumExplorer at dash.org, and you like put that in, and then it just kicks out a static address. And then once you send to that static address, you just look up the history of that static address, and you know exactly who that is, and every single time that happens. Now, on the other side of things, and I believe that's the case with FIO right now, the Foundation for Interwallet Operability. I believe it's the same thing that, like, although every time I send to your, like, let's just say you send to my FIO address, which is the desert links at Edge, because I use the Edge wallet, then if you send me Dash or whatever, I believe it does a new Dash address every single time, right? So you can't really see that. But if you look at the transactions between FIO usernames on the FIO blockchain, there's a little credit associated with each time you do that. And so then you can, if you're looking at the FIO blockchain, then you can see our transaction history publicly. And then you go to things like, let's say hand cash or pay mail in BSV, where if you pay to that, it gets a new address every single time. There isn't necessarily a linkability, except whoever runs the Paymail server or hand cash themselves, whoever runs that, they would have all that transaction history. So if you lose your wallet, you can just re-import your money, but all your contacts, your transaction history between those contacts, all that stays with them, the centralized entity, or they just gets lost. So that's like the real cool part about that is that it's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no like exceptions to this peer-to-peer digital cash Venmo style experience. It's on Dash. You put it into anything that works, like the wallet, right? The Dash Pay wallet. You put anything that works, and it's just all there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct. And I could touch on some extra features of Dash Pay that I'm going to try to include later. There was all this talk about regulation, and when people send money to an exchange, the funds get like locked up, right? So one cool thing about Dash Pay is you can decide when you want things to be. When I send you a payment, the only people that know who sent and received that payment are you and me. But you have proof that the payment came from me, right? And you actually have a cryptographic proof. So let's say I get paid by Dashcore, right? And I get paid. I send the money to Coinbase, and Coinbase is like, wait, where did this money come from? You know, they later down the line with more and more regulation in crypto, I hope it doesn't happen, but I do see it potentially happening. Coinbase could be like, nope, I'm putting a hold on your funds because I don't know where. I mean, I'm really hoping by that time we won't have to actually transfer into fiat anymore. That would
Yeah,
be the ideal situation, right?
that would be
But
perfect.
But in the case of, hey, where did these funds come from? You can send a proof saying, okay, these funds came from this, and you can give it to them. And no other transactions that you did will be shown to Coinbase, just that transaction. And then Coinbase would be like, I'm taking Coinbase as an example, but any exchange would meet their regulatory requirements that
Hmm.
probably will be. I, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I
Yeah,
can just see how the future is probably, might go, and that is another cool feature, right?
yeah. So when we're trying to talk about one thing that I think has been lost on people because it hasn't been properly communicated, and there's been a lot of discussion about proper communication lately,
Mm-hmm.
has been what exactly Dash Platform is and does. Why did it have to happen? Why does it take so long, kind of thing? Because I think what people thought in the early days, especially when like Evan put his little roadmap of like, oh, mid 2018 it's going to be out kind of thing, and like, which in hindsight is like, dude, someone's got to slap that poor guy. He's a great dude, but my gosh, that guy, he had constant
Uh,
problems. But basically, people thought, oh, I got usernames and contact lists I can send to him, and that's it. That's great. And in reality, then at some point, it's like, hey, guess what, guys? It's going to be a while, but you're getting this awesome decentralized application platform along with it. And everyone's just like, one of two things: either, wow, awesome, this is so cool, this is way better than I anticipated, or why didn't we just get the simple thing right now? And so the question, right, of like why kind of leads into
yeah,
the structure of how this stuff works. So, all that being said, the actual usernames themselves, where are they stored?
the usernames themselves are stored on Dash platform
Yes.
inside a Merkleized state tree. I know that
Mm-hmm.
term might be a little bit complex for some people, but basically, they're stored in a database, and that database is has a Merkle tree that gives a root proof.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I could go into this if you want.
Yeah,
Do you
sure.
want me to go into this a little
Yeah.
bit? Okay, cool. So let's talk about the fundamentals of Dash Platform again a little bit.
Yeah.
So um, basically, the way it works is it's a practical Byzantine fault tolerant system, which basically means that a majority of nodes um, believe something to be true, so
Mm-hmm.
it is true,
Okay.
and it's basically what a lot of other projects that are proof of stake would use, but we're doing things very different because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of those projects for light clients, um, in my opinion, use a trusted system, and in Dash, we really wanted to do things the right way, and to do things the right way, we introduced like a lot of maybe new stuff like
Mm-hmm.
you know if you were wondering like why it took so long, well, we had to redo our quorum system. Originally back in 2015 we had we did have quorums, but when we realized that we needed all the features that we eventually came to realize we needed, we had to build the LLMQ system, which were DIP 3, DIP 4, DIP 5. Those are DIPs are the Dash improvement proposals.
Yeah.
So, um, look at me going on.
No, that's good.
So we got chain locks because of that work, right?
Yeah, of
Uh,
course.
Code Codablock came in and he was like, "Wait a second, this is really cool what we just built for platform,
Mm-hmm.
but wait, we can use it to secure our chain against 50% attacks."
Mm-hmm.
So there was a little deviation from evolution to do that. I think we could say it was worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so basically, the quorums uh, on platform decide if certain state transitions are accurate or not. So uh, in Dash Platform, we're going to have 100 member quorums. So if 67, well, it's 2/3 plus one, but let's, for simplicity's sake, if
Yeah.
67 percent of those 100 decide that a transaction is correct, then it is correct.
Mm-hmm.
So, with proof of work and with you can do some really amazing things, but you can't do everything right now. And what we're trying to do is capture the amazing part of proof of work and the amazing part of proof of stake without losing anything in the process.
Yeah.
And it's a little tricky, but we're getting there.
So in like a few words, what do you think is the amazing part of proof of work, and then what do you think is the amazing part of proof of stake? Obviously, that could be a huge, complicated answer, but just like in a few words, like if you had to describe someone, like, why don't we just go all one or the other?
well, well, in proof of work, for example, you need to, for a transaction to actually happen on the network, you need for it to be mined by a miner, and our mining times are 2.5 minutes. Until that happens, yes, you can create a sort of instant send lock, which
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing for transactions. But it isn't really a. But I mean, even the instant send lock, that kind of is proof of stake.
Yeah,
Not really, but it's
sort of.
it's it's our own interpretation, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
um, where you have a majority of our network that say, okay, this transaction is instant send locked, so then you believe it to be instant send locked,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and that's kind of how our chain locks also work. When the quorums for our chain locks are 400 members. So if a majority of those 400 members basically say that a block is correct,
Mm-hmm.
then it is correct.
Yeah.
And we're able to do that basically because of the masternode network.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of other coins just cannot do that. Whereas if you just go full proof of stake without proof of work at all, you lose a few things. First, you lose the ability to create a network that is well distributed.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you lose. What was I going to say? Mm. Now it's 4:30 a.m. That's why I get
Yeah.
lost sometimes.
It is what it is, right?
Uh, um, yeah, I'm just having a blank. But oh yeah, you lose the entropy generation from proof of work.
Yeah. So
So
I hear this
sorry about
this
that.
I hear this bandied about a lot about entropy from proof of work. And so my understanding as a not a very technical person is when you have for my dumb I guess understanding is when you have mining, theoretically anyone can participate and anyone can get coins out of that. Whereas with you have
Hmm.
pure proof of stake, if everyone staking the coins doesn't sell, then they get all the coins forever. It's kind of like a cartelized situation. Although realistically that doesn't happen, right? People sell it or, give it to other people or whatever. But so is that kind of what Entropy is, or is it more complicated than that, more involved in that?
It's more involved. So basically, the way the mining works is that you're trying to constantly find a number, basically, that matches certain parameters, and in this case, a certain amount of zeros at the beginning of the number for Bitcoin or Dash, and you know we that the thing what's so cool about proof of work is that the miners are incentivized to release their block as soon as they find it, because if they don't release it and they just try to find another block that would potentially match what they want their random entropy to be, some other miner would come in and post their block. So what you basically get is a distributed pseudo-random number generator, and that actually is quite useful for many properties, especially when you're deciding. I know this is getting quite technical, but when you're deciding what masternode should be inside quorums, etc. But dying down the technical side of things a little bit, let's probably get back to how DashPay works. Platform. Yeah, that's probably better. So basically, when I send you a contact request, I am basically making a state transition to this global state, where I'm basically saying, me, QuantumExplorer, wants to be contacts with you, Joel.
Yeah.
So that is stored inside the platform state, and if 67% of a quorum decide that it matches the certain rules that we've created, then it gets added. But that's not the really interesting part, because other projects have done that.
Yeah.
What is interesting is that we then do something called threshold signature aggregation, which is quite more modern cryptography. And you're like, oh, wow, that's a big word. What does that mean? Why is that important? Well, for mobile clients, for example, what you really care about is getting a proof that data that you're actually getting back is correct.
Yeah.
So if you're on your phone and you receive a contact request from me, you don't want a third party basically making this a different contact request, sending it to you, and then you send them a payment, but you're thinking you're going to send to me, but you're actually sending to them.
Yeah, like a man in the middle type of a thing.
Yes. And so everything in this decentralized system needs to have proofs, right? Where what we did really innovative recently is applying threshold signatures to these proofs and making them really small so they can actually be used in mobile. Because I actually don't think that a Venmo type system just between computers works. Yeah. I think that you need to have it on mobile. You need to be able to, when you're at the store, pay somebody directly. You're not going to say, hey, let me just run back home and so I can use DashPay, right?
Yeah, I hate this. Like, a lot of people in crypto don't seem to understand this that much, but like the real world, as it were, is extremely mobile heavy, right? And like everyone uses banking apps, they do tap and pay, they do things like that. And then like
Hmm.
where me with like it's without the laptop and I just type, like people don't do that. Like people can't even type anymore, by the way. Like they just can't. Like it's funny because my whole life, like I think it was my first year of using crypto before I used a desktop wallet of any kind. I just got it straight to a blockchain.info wallet on my, or blockchain.com as it's now known, on my mobile device. And there we go. I was just using that. And then it was later when I started, like, it was just literally the mobile experience of QR code scan, copy, paste address, mobile. That was my entire crypto thing. And I was like spending it around me, receiving money, giving money. Like, that's my whole experience. And it was only later when I got a little bit more like nerdy into things that I started to actually use like a computer. And so if it doesn't work for this, that's one thing that's like really kind of surprising is, so I host these crypto meetups here around New Hampshire. And so we'll have like 9 or 12 or however many people come to a local place and spend crypto right there. And some for people who don't use it on a usual basis, it's like a great way of like walking them through it. And the thing is, and this is not like Dash shill me right now. It's like when I use Dash, it works, right? I go up and scan the QR, like the QR code. It picks the QR code scanner on the Dash wallet, or the Android one, of course. That's what I have experience with, but it works really well. Like it catches it right away. And I hate to say it, like the Edge wallet for I think they might have improved it, but for the longest time, and I love Edge by the way, their QR code scanner, like you had to get the lighting right and everything, like just little things like that. I scan and I hit beep hit, and then as soon as my finger pad is like off the send button, it goes cling. It says confirm there because I use BIP70 and it just gets it right away. And it's just like it's a beautiful payment experience that's superior to cards because I see people paying with a card in front of me or behind me. It takes longer, and it's that thing. When you go to other coins wallets, like some of them don't support BIP70 invoices. Some of them have like an extra couple screens you got to go through to pay or
Uh-huh.
whatever. They're just other ones just don't. In fact, this is where if anyone knows anyone at Coinomi, they refuse to use BIP70 invoices. They don't see the need for it because their wallet is just used to like hold and trade around, but not to actually spend. So, Coinomi, if you're watching this, get on that stuff because everyone who comes to these meetups who is not doesn't used to having spending the stuff, they come to this meetups with a Coinomi wallet and they can't use it. So, anyway, that's a little quick little rant. But basically, yeah, I 100% agree with this whole. It has to work on mobile or it's complete crap.
Hmm. And yep, BIP 70. I agree. It's we've supported it for years, actually. I mean, the first version of iOS had it.
Yeah,
I think.
the
I'm not
Android might have
sure
lagged. I
Android
think. I think Android
potentially.
lagged because I remember as recently as like a few months ago, some friend of mine couldn't because he was using the F-Droid version, right? And it was like it lagged behind the Android version, and the F-Droid one couldn't pay the invoice. So it was like that was like 9 months ago or something. So like basically, it's been over a year, like maybe a year and a half, 2 years, maybe has been in Android, but like not since the beginning.
Hmm. I don't remember.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It all works now, and
Yay! And then later down the line, we're hoping to um, BIP 70 is cool, but
mhm.
BIP 70 with usernames is even better, right?
Yeah, of course. You can go pay to a username. You can go add some extra information and stuff. So I'm just thinking about like the structure of a platform and stuff. My
Uh-huh.
idea, and this is like my visual kind of idea. There's the way Dash, like old school Dash works, is first off,
Hmm.
it works like Bitcoin. There's like the base proof of work mining layer that's similar, different block times, things
Hmm.
like that, but it's just the same. So if all that fancy master nonsense just stops working someday, that still works like Bitcoin. It still works. Now,
Yes.
then like modern Dash, but not platform, you have the masternodes that do a few things on that support the layer one, that support, that kind of beef it up, such as lock transactions in for instant send, and then lock blocks in for chain locks, and then help coordinate the coin joins for private send, right? But like for the most part, it's just like special on top of the base thing. Now, from my understanding of platform, there's a whole like layer two, like a platform chain, the whole side chain, and all that is pretty much exclusively done with the master nodes. The whole mining Bitcoin-esque layer doesn't really get involved other than occasional like transaction hashes linking stuff together. Is that kind of relatively accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
Yes.
That's accurate. The interaction between the two layers are basically like, for example, when you wanted to create an identity. So when I'm going to create my identity when mainnet launches, I will basically, it's a two-step process to register your username. First, you have to register the identity, and then the username right on top of it. But yeah, when I register my identity, I have to put a little bit of Dash into credits, and our credits are a little bit like gas for another system, except that they can act. Well, I don't know all systems that use gas actually,
of course,
but you can transform Dash into credits, and not for the first mainnet release, but eventually we're going to have credits back to Dash. We still need to work out a few things for credits back to Dash. But, but basically, yeah. So there is some there's some communication between the two chains.
Yeah.
In that regard.
I will now. Ash did do a correction on the BIP70 thing. Supposedly Dash had BIP70 support on Android forever. It's just that AnyPay had their own little pay colon instead of like, whatever. They had their own little thing that they had to support. And so
oh yes.
And so
that's right.
The thing with that is, which at first I'm just like, man, you really have your own thing. But I guess the cool thing about that is AnyPay just puts up a QR code, and then you scan it with whatever wallet it is, and then you can pay regardless of the crypto you use. So if they have like Bitcoin Cash Dash enabled, I can scan the same QR code with a wallet of any of those that supports any of those coins, and it'll just pay with whatever. And if the merchant doesn't accept one of those for whatever reason, it'll just say it doesn't work. And so it is a pretty cool thing. It is worth it. But just before I start like talking smack about stuff that the Dash Mobile team didn't do when in fact they did do it right. Yeah, so we're talking about the different levels and stuff. So one of the biggest frustrations with using Ethereum, which I don't use it very often, let's be honest. I have only ever really used it to shuffle around tokens that I get, mostly trying to sell them and such. But all that stuff is on like the main base layer. Like Ethereum does have off-chain stuff, but that's for more like, I guess, scaling. But it's just, my understanding of it is all the cool like operations on Ethereum are all just on the main proof of work chain. Is that kind of the way things work, or I don't know?
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah. And so do you know of any other major modern cryptocurrencies that use that sidechain kind of system to like delegate off some of the more like application based stuff?
The truth is that I've been working quite hard, so I don't actually do much research, well, at least in the last 8 months, on other projects. So it's possible. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But to my knowledge, no.
Yeah. So in my limited perspective, that seems like a huge advantage because you just get like the payment stuff that's going through. And one of the biggest problems with like Ethereum has been like, look, I just want to move my tokens around, and like the like the average transaction fee on Ethereum is something like $10 right now. I can't remember what exactly it was. It's pretty high. And then the median transaction value on Ethereum is $0. So basically, they're just using Ethereum to like move all kinds of different tokens and execute smart contracts and stuff like that. But it's like that's all on like the money chain when I just want to like send. I just want to
Yes.
send and it's just getting clogged up in there. And it's kind of like having like different lanes of traffic where I want my own, like if I'm commuting, I want to be in the commuter lane, just go in there. If everyone else is doing their own little nonsense and they, if they're not like commuting to work with a whole bunch of people, they just stay out, we don't want to use the highway just for that stuff. So that's something that I
Yeah.
like. I have had some questions on this and we can of course hit the scaling type thing, but of like what happens if everyone is using all these dApps and stuff. Like say there's like a Twitter that people are just sending and receiving messages back and forth all over the place. And the good thing is that won't clog up the actual blockchain, which is used for payments. But
Yep.
so that's a fantastic thing. You don't have to worry about. Now, what are the scaling considerations of platform chain?
Well, going back to that, that's one of the reasons why we made the platform chain. Actually, is you know we also like there was this question back in 2000. I don't remember dates anymore.
Long
But
time
there was
ago.
this question, yeah, a while ago. Can we just use our main chain to do everything, right? And one of the negatives were that if we did do that, the fees for transactions would start skyrocketing, and we'd have to save pretty much any information that ever got made to our chain. Our chain would explode.
Mm-hmm.
We'd and one consideration that you also have to know is that the masternode network runs on software. Each masternode probably runs on software that you can rent for $20 to $30 a month. We don't want that to go to $1,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it will 100 years from now, but we really. I mean, there are many reasons why we didn't do it on the core chain. Um, and scaling was definitely one of them. And can you remind me your question again?
In just a second, because I just got a contact request. I don't know if you can see it from Ricardo Spagni, aka Fluffy Pony.
Is that really Fluffy Pony?
I highly doubt it. I think it's a troll. In which case, if it is a troll, I am definitely going to, yeah. I'll make sure he knows. Yeah, but I'll be his friend. I don't care. I don't give a shit about this whole like crypto wars stuff. So anyway, my original question was about scalability of platform chain and stuff. So obviously that's the whole reason we moved off of the main chain for all this kind of stuff. But like, what is the
Oh,
what are the scalability considerations of platform chain?
oh yeah. So there is something interesting. So like in platform, you create state transitions that hold underlying data. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my contact request from me to you is a set of information, right? That will get added. I'm going to say this again and again, this
Mm-hmm.
to the state tree, which is kind of like our database. But that data can be discarded later. You can get rid of it. There's nothing to stop you from getting rid of it. In the case of, this is a bad example, because in the case of contact requests, there are specific data that you can say in your contract can never be discarded, and that's necessary for payments.
Mm-hmm.
But you can use platform as ephemeral storage instead of
Permanent.
non-ephemeral, yeah, permanent storage. And that is very important for scalability, because when you have to consider when you're paying for a transaction, you, in terms of the economics behind a transaction, you need to pay for the amount of space on disk that it will occupy for the rest of time for the network.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some interesting calculations I did last year on how much that is, and it's about 10 times the amount it would cost for 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
just because of the things getting cheaper and cheaper. But actually, that's just a side topic. Going back to scaling, yes, so in our first release to mainnet, we are not going to focus that much on scaling. We are going to make it so it scales to a certain extent, but we are not going to focus on the long-term goal, basically to get it out there as
Yeah.
soon as possible. The long-term goal is, so we have our mass node network, right? It has 5,000 nodes.
Mm-hmm.
And you have 100 nodes at a time that will make state transitions. Those are our quorums.
Mm-hmm.
But why only use 100 if there are 5,000,
So you can use
right?
the other ones for other things at the same time.
Yes. So instead of having basically a linear, like everything queued up on one chain, basically in
Mm-hmm.
platform, you would have multiple simultaneous chains per quorum. I don't want to
Mm.
commit to this feature because we're not 100% sure we can do it,
But that's what you're
but
trying to.
but eventually, and at that point, our system can scale forever,
Yeah.
because all it would require for more scaling is more nodes.
Yeah. So at that point, because let's just say there's 5,000 master nodes, just close enough. Let's say there's 5,000 master nodes, then that would be 50 times, basically 50 separate blockchains, kind of, or platform chains, as it were, sort of running. Now,
Yeah.
how do you how do you keep that from like getting messy and overwriting each other's stuff? Like, as in, how do you keep it from, you know, you having forks basically? They splitting in different directions, or
How do you
theoretically.
basically how do you basically merge data between different chains if there
Mm-hmm.
are conflicts? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that basically that so we have not touched that much, but I can go into it a little bit because it is a very
Yeah, you
interesting
can go into
question.
theory. It doesn't have to be representative of what Dash is actually going to look like in a year or so. But like, just hypothetically, what are some ways you could kind of do that?
Well, you could basically have zones of responsibility, right? So not every quorum. So let's say you have 50 quorums happening simultaneously, each having some underlying data. Not every single quorum has an area of responsibility over every piece of information. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, if you were to get a state transition, you would actually allocate that state transition to the quorum that would, have to process it.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's some in what's the word in English? Inference.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a word in English?
I think so.
This is I basically a precondition to the state changing. So
Mm-hmm.
if you, for example, like textbook example is I have a father and my father has a father, so I have a grandfather, right?
Yes.
So A to B, B to C, and you can't do B to C without A to B.
Yeah.
So if you had A to B on one quorum and you had B to C on a different quorum, how could you verify that the precondition A to B is good? And so that is, those are the problems for after mainnet. And I think it's possible where, um, you know, as I said, with areas of responsibility inside of quorums, If a quorum gets information that doesn't match the prerequisite, it basically asks the quorum that does have that for a specific proof or a proof of non-existence.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the quorums synchronize. The thing that is not well yet known and needs more research is basically, does this system work?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think it does.
Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff reminds me of block propagation stuff, where instead of like publishing the whole list of blocks to all the other nodes, where you use like a Bloom filter or something to just see if they have all the transactions and give them missing ones, rather than just fails, which you actually have to do the whole thing. So interesting stuff. Like, I'm trying to think about. So first off, how big of a transaction in terms of like data size is like a platform chain, state transition type thing, compared to a regular transaction on the blockchain? And obviously, there might not be a neat answer to everything on that, but it's still worth it. Still worth an ask.
Yes. So you might wonder, like, why we're not on mainnet yet, and this is one. That question is a good reason, because we have been trying to release iteratively as best we can, and right now, one of the stories that we still need to do. When I say stories, it means one of the tasks that we still need to do for mainnet is efficient data serialization. So right now, the answer is they represent a lot of data on platform, more data than they really need to.
Yeah.
And when I say a lot, we're not talking like megabytes, right?
Yeah.
They're still quite small, right? But we can still probably knock off about 40% of the size of a state transition. It also really matters about like your specific contract in question and what data you're sending. For example, like in the case of your profile in DashPay, right?
Yeah.
You have the about me field. If you write like 200 characters in that about me field, or if you write
12.
Hello, I'm Joel. Yeah, it will matter, right? Because there's less information. So the contact request itself, I'd have to look up the DashPay spec. I can do that if you want.
Yeah, well,
Div 15.
yeah, might as well. But then the other thing is how, what kinds of actions would require a actual transaction / state transition on platform chain? So let's take my pea brain and wrap it around stuff that exists today and not, in like the user basic world, i.e., let's say you make a Dash-based Twitter of sorts. So every single time I want to go tweet, right? So I say, hey, this is a great day. I'm going to chat with QuantumExplorer on our podcast. Fantastic. And then I go boop, and it, put out that little tweet. So does that constitute a state transition always if I want to like drop a message?
Yes.
Yes. So if I tweet if I go on like a tweet storm, do like eight tweets in a row, then that's all 8 separate transitions, right?
Yes. So I can touch on some features, but I can't actually promise that they'll come out.
Yes.
Okay. So because there are some things that are being investigated, and hopefully they will exist. But so one thing that's almost for sure that's going to happen is the state transitions are actually pruned. When you're thinking about the blockchain, the platform blockchain, it's not actually a full blockchain.
Hmm.
It is we actually prune blocks,
Mm-hmm.
to just get rid of them when we don't need them anymore, and and all we care about is the current state. So, for example, in Quar, it the chain makes sense because you have A to B to C to D,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's important. All the transactions of A to B, B to C, etc. In platform, that's not actually the case. All you care about is the last state.
C to D.
So, yeah, C to D,
Mm-hmm.
and actually D, because the last state is signed by the network.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that happened before, you don't care about. If you want to care about it, you can by specifying such a thing in the contract.
Yeah.
But that's not necessary. So, for example, if you go on a tweet storm and you, let's say, make 15 tweets, there
Mm-hmm.
is a cost to the state transitions, which is very small, um, especially for thinking of something like Twitter, because there's not much CPU involved. Um, and then there's a cost to data storage of your actual tweets on inside the state tree. Now, let's say you don't. Let's say you have 20,000 tweets, and wait. So going back a second, this is a bad example because there go. One of the features that I want to introduce is that there will be two ways to actually pay for stuff on platform.
Mm-hmm.
A more expensive way where you basically own the data forever. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say I'm in the case of Twitter, you probably want the tweet to exist forever.
Mm-hmm.
So you would pay in advance for the tweet to exist forever. Uh, the other way of doing it is, for example, to pay a certain amount, maybe for it even to exist forever. But if you delete it, credits are actually reimbursed to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you decide that you want to go on a tweet storm and do like, well, I mean, it's still going to cost almost nothing, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure of the numbers, but I'm guessing that you won't really care about a few pennies if you do 1,000 tweets.
Yes.
Don't hold me to those
Which
numbers,
let
but
me as someone who actually investigates the field of this, the prominent crypto Twitter alternative, a Twetch, which runs on BSV, charges about 2 cents per tweet. So 2 cents per tweet, and up to 11 cents if you post like a picture and stuff. And so some chumps are paying that. I'm not really. I kind of went Twitch broke and I don't use it anymore that much. But like as I said, if you do like a tenth of a cent per like tweet on like platform, which is sounds like it's more than you're even talking about, that's still like fine. Like it's not gonna be a problem.
I, I don't really. So we also, one other thing that we're going to do before mainnet is investigate the actual cost that we're
Mm-hmm.
going to put for the credits, right?
Yeah.
So that's like I've mentioned two stories that we have to do, and that's one. The cost we have to investigate it because it's one of those later items
Mm-hmm.
that need to be done.
Well, we
So
got this question here, by the way. Hi there, wondering if Quantum could speak to the decision to fork Tendermint and how we are confident in scaling when the system goes live on mainnet. That's kind of we were talking about scaling just now, but like as far as the Tendermint, I mean, I guess you need no
yeah, sure.
more context maybe because like what about the decision to? I think you wrote about it in the post, right? That just says like oh, basically this does a lot of what we need done, and we're running out of time, so let's just do this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So back, I'll give some history and then I'll
Yeah.
answer this question. Um, there were two. back in 2018, a while ago,
Yeah.
we maybe 2018 or 2019, I'm not really sure. We ran into a problem and we needed a consensus engine. We had kind of made our own. Well, we had started making our own, but it hadn't really, you know, I think it
Mm-hmm.
would. I think there were decisions that it was going to take too long. So there were two choices. Either we scrap what we had done and we start over with some new ideas, or we use an existing solution. And I think to get there's been some pressure to release this, and I think that going down the Tendermint line might have saved us some time. So we decided to fork Tendermint, but Tendermint did not actually suit everything that we needed, right? And I'm pretty apt at answering this question because I am the one that worked on the Tendermint fork that we're calling TenderDash.
Yeah. Which
So
is a funny name if you ask me, but
I did not choose it.
it's funny. Yeah.
Whatever. Um, but it's fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
I like the name. It grows on you.
It is funny.
Um,
Dash is so tender.
so yeah, the way I kind of talked about the way Tendermint worked before, but so I'm going to really focus on the modifications from Tendermint to TenderDash. And the main modification is that Tendermint uses basically uses just normal signatures.
Mm-hmm.
They use a curve called Edwards curve.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the exact number of the curve, but it doesn't support threshold signatures. So what does that mean? It means that if you have 100 nodes voting on a specific block, the proof that the block is correct has 100 signatures.
Mm-hmm.
And 100 signatures is very big. With threshold signatures, you can make that really small.
Mm-hmm.
And with a really small signature, you can send that as proof to a mobile client. So you can actually use mobile wallets. Tendermint actually recently did work on Light Client, and they did it a little bit differently. They did it with an element of somewhat of trust, where the Light Client basically trusts a portion of the network,
Mm-hmm.
which is a different way of doing things. But the Light Client, I still think, needs to download quite a lot of signatures.
Mm.
So, in my opinion, this is really cool what we're doing. Yeah. So we'll have efficient proofs that are sent back to mobile clients. But the question exactly was, how are we afraid about the scalability, right?
Yeah, let me pull back up here. And how confident are we in scaling when the system goes live on mainnet?
Well, we do. I mean, if I were to say, like, from a 1 to 10 how confident I am, it would be an 8.5. But we're not going to go to mainnet until, like, we're all confident at 10.
Yeah.
Basically. I am sure that we will, get it working, that it's completely scalable to a certain amount. Now, if we do get like a million transitions per day,
Mm-hmm.
do I think that we might have problems? Yes. I mean, every system is scalable until it isn't,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that there's definitely going to be a threshold after which the system will degrade.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think, well, if we basically if we hit that threshold, that will be very good for us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, like, let's be clear about like as far as the blockchain capacity. So I'm like, oh, what's going to happen if you get more than like a few? Like Dash can handle a few million transactions a day right now without even increasing the block size past 2 MB. And Dr. Tap has figured out that it can work just fine up to 10 MB right now, with of course some extra, you know, beyond that, probably very optimistic too. But that's a lot of transaction capacity. And let's not forget that like most popular blockchains, like Bitcoin's doing all right with just like 300,000 a day. And I know that there's a lot of condensation in that as far as like batching and things like that. And then there's like theoretically some like off-chain stuff. Although how much of that is, different discussion. But basically, it's also interesting to note that when Bitcoin Cash was getting around like, 20 to 40,000 transactions a day or whatever it was, it at least 1,000 of those a day were just on this memo.cash Twitter kind of like really ghetto Twitter copy type thing. And that's like very minimal use. But then a lot of people have been pointing to the almost 100,000 transactions a day coming from this new other project called member.cash, which is all on chain, which, as we discussed, is not necessarily the best way of doing something like this. But if like the main chains of like a bunch of these different projects are like they're being used, they're not being overrun yet, although, pretty soon. Like I basically all that to say, if we get some really good poppin' dApps on Dash, and then we're like, oh no, we're starting to overload what we could do and what we can rapidly process as far as state transitions. What are we ever going to do? We're probably going to be like flush with users, hype, and cash and all the other good stuff. That it's like, wow, that's a great problem to have right now. That we have to figure out. Like that's one reason like Ethereum is not scaling right now. That's not something people are really complaining about. Like people like me who are trying to
Joel,
use
I
it.
lost you.
Oh yeah, can you still hear me at all or not?
Oh yeah. You said Ethereum is still what?
Yeah. So Ethereum, despite being overloaded and like not scaling and all this kind of crap, it's not a problem for them because that represents a ton of people trying to use the platform. And I mean, it is a problem, let me be honest. But it's not like oh my gosh, this is the death of Ethereum. They have two. It's like, that nobody goes to that place anymore. It's too crowded.
Yeah.
It's one of those kinds of things. So yeah, it's a good problem to have. Now, there was something that was mentioned. There's a lot of stuff in here, but one of the things, it wasn't even a question, but someone was making a joke about registering every single Dash username as soon as, like, if possible, as soon as it hits mainnet, and then selling them on a secondary market. So that brings up the point of like username squatting and things like that, which I know we discussed before. Do you have any thoughts on how that's whole on that on how all those shenanigans are going to be handled?
Yes, I do. So this is something that I care about quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't want to have to. I've worked many years on this. I want the rollout to be as smoothly as possible. I don't want phishing to happen. I don't want people that were waiting for years to start this. All of a sudden, like you try to reserve the desert links and you can't get it. But it's also a very interesting problem with decentralization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what actually why would you get the desert links and not somebody else? That's been a counter argument.
Mm-hmm.
So these kind of have to be well thought out, and they have been to an extent. Um, there are solutions, and most of them involve some sort of I'm going to say the way I would like to do it.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's the way they were going to do it,
Yes.
because we are a big team, and there are a lot of considerations to take into account, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is more of a thought at the moment for me,
Of
and
course.
less of a well uh, oiled decision.
Yeah,
Uh,
of course.
so where do we have decision making?
Mm-hmm.
Well, governance, right? So one thing that we could do is expand on the voting capabilities of governance to basically have an initial phase where usernames are given out. So, for example, I register QuantumExplorer,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say 7 other people do as well. Well, basically, my point is try to get as many masternode owners to basically vote for me, say that I am the real Quantum Explorer,
Mm-hmm.
and in this initial phase. That is one way to solve it. I actually think that would be a good way, because it would kind of have this initial phase where usernames are distributed somewhat fairly, and we also potentially could do some type of you know system where we restrict some usernames for future use. Let's say names of exchanges, or words that really aren't great. you know, I don't actually think there should be any central authority ever deciding what is and is not good.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
I do I do think that there could be a system where the mass nodes themselves decide
Mm.
what is and is not good in a very decentralized way. Um, yeah.
Yeah, as far as like an arbitration type of a thing, I guess. Now, that comes to an interesting discussion point, because if you're thinking like I want my username, and it's like obviously if it's not available, then okay. But once you get your username, if people can just say no, I don't like that, I'm going to take it away. Like for example, some let's just say someone has like a big cat rescue or some kind of cat sanctuary or something, and so they decide to say I'm the desert lynx, because a desert lynx is, it's not just a lynx in the desert, it's a specific domestic cat breed called a desert lynx. And when I was registering some blog domain back in 2011, desertlynx.com was already taken by some cat thingy, so I was the desert lynx. And so some like they just put the desert lynx because they just think it looks cool, and then it's just like, but I'm the real one. And it's like, what if they can have it taken away from them because this guy's more popular slash famous, or assuming, or the other way around, right? That's the real problem, right? If you can't do that. Now, of course, like obviously that's why like the whole idea of an initial phase rather than just, permanently is like, okay, there's a few well-known community members. The masters can decide if someone like camps on, for example, this Ricardo Spagni guy at Fluffy Pony, the Fluffy Pony username dude. I doubt he'd friend me. Let me put it this way. Even if he's using Dash right now, I doubt he'd friend me this fast. I'm gonna have to tag him on Twitter and give him shit for it. But uh, basically, what if that is a fake one? What if that's not the real? What if that's not the real Fluffy Pony? How do we get him his username when he tucks his tail between his legs? I want to use some Dash, And how do we do it for him? Like, you'd have to like take it away from the troll, and then do
No,
that.
and we can't do that. We can never take away a username, and we can't take away a username or reassign a username,
Mm-hmm.
because that would basically, that would screw with DashPay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, like if I'm sending a payment to one person, and then all of a sudden the username changed, and I was actually really meaning to send to that person, you can't, like, it has a lot of problems, right? So no, we can't take usernames away from people. But the username system that we built is more than DashPay usernames.
Mm-hmm.
It's a naming system. So the DashPay usernames are actually your name dot dash, even though you don't see the dot dash. It's hidden from you. But there could be other things later down the line, like dot company or something.
Yeah. So that's basically how the current systems that I've seen seem to solve this problem. Obviously, Hive and Steam and stuff like that just have the username. But as far as so for example, FIO does their names through wallets. They're for inter-wallet operability. It's not like a universal name. So it's at Edge, at Shapeshift, for example, which kind of we'll get into that in a second. But like, basically, Edge/Shapeshift get to like hold on to anything at Shapeshift or anything at Edge. And so it's not like someone can camp on them because they're camping on their own stuff. And if you go sign up through them, you can always get it. It's like, oh, I'm the Desert Links at Edge. I'm the Desert Links. I use the Edge wallet. Like, no one can just get the Desert Links. They might get a Desert Links at Shapeshift, which would be confusing. But it's still like, there's still that kind of like subdomain kind of a clarity. Now, the other thing that FIO does is it has domains expire. So if you have a username, like I was a Desert Links at Edge, which I am, and I don't renew it within a year, and then there's like a few months, like you're in the naughty box, you didn't pay kind of period, after which it just goes back on the market and someone else can register it, which is a great way to avoid camping. However, I can imagine like what happens if, I decide to go off into the jungle somewhere on some like hippie vacation thing, and then I come back and I'd forgotten to renew it on time, and then all of a sudden people have been sending money to the wrong person. That could be a little bit sketchy.
Yeah, exactly. Also, one thing that I would like to say is that when you create a contact request, like when I send a contact request to you, Joel, I'm actually sending it between the blockchain identities, not from username to username. The username is on top of it. So even if you were to lose the username, Joel, the payment channel that we actually created between each other,
It's still
I'm very careful when I use payment channel because it's not the same thing as Bitcoin payment channels.
Yeah, it's not like a lightning thingy.
Though actually, there are some semblances, but it's Anyways, so the payment channel between us exists between our identities, not in the user name. So. But the problem with switching usernames is more of a phishing problem, right? So I know that you're at the Desert Links, and let's say another at the Desert Links sends me a contact request, and then let's say through Discord says, "Oh, you forgot to send me that $15 you owe me," and then I'm like, "Okay, weird." And actually. We have some other issues that I'd like to bring up is since these contact requests are somewhat public on chain, another issue that we have is, let's say the Desert Links, send me a contact request. What's to stop somebody else from sending the exact same contact request with, instead of the Desert Links, the T is a 1?
Yeah.
Right.
I get all that crap all the time. It's the Telegram problem.
Yeah. So we actually solved that by, and this is not in the current release, but it will be in a future one before mainnet, where we actually verified that the names are different enough that they can't be phished. So, there's a lot of stuff there.
So how does that work? Let's say that I have the Desert Links is taken by some asshole. Let's be honest. And I decide I'll go Desert Links. Fine. Is that enough that it passes the phishing filter? Just because it's like.
Oh yes.
But so if I did 1 instead of the L for links, then that would get me screwed.
That it would just say you can't register it.
Yeah. So that's does it just block those usernames from ever being registered, or does it register all the permutations around it under the one, kind of a thing?
Well, it actually works a little differently than that. So basically, when you register any name, it gets translated into I think it's base 57 we're using.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard of base 58 for addresses in in Dash
Yeah.
and Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically we remove some characters, and every character that we remove, we transpose into the base character. So like 1L, capital I, they're all the same character.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we register that underneath the thing that's actually being registered, so it's unique.
Yeah. So let's just say we have, obviously Ryan Taylor decides he wants a Dash username, as he should. If he didn't, I think he deserved to be slapped. But so he gets a Dash username. It just and he decides to not go the baby giraffe angle. He's like, you know what? I'm professional. I'm serious. None of this like animal nonsense. I'm gonna go Ryan Taylor. So he's like Ryan Taylor. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And then some other guy named Ryan, whose last name happens to be Taylor, says, "Oh, I can't wait to get my Dash username. Oh, it's taken. Oh, Ryan Taylor won. Will that be caught in the phishing thing, or will it not? Because it's like, because it.
No,
Yeah.
it won't be.
So there'd be Ryan Taylor won, and then say there's another Ryan Taylor out there who's just like, I want to get my Ryan Taylor's. I'm gonna do Ryan Taylor L, and then that'll be up. It's already taken. What? Someone took because L and I and one and like uppercase I. So you'd have to do Ryan Taylor 2 or something, or Ryan Taylor 05 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like the line of like, when is it too much? We could do stuff with. There's some algorithms called I think demo Levenstein distance, edit distance, where you can actually see the Ryan Taylor is registered, and then there's a 1. Maybe that's too similar, and then that would be an edit distance of 1. So maybe that's we could remove that, but I think that that's going too far.
Mm-hmm.
Our main point is that there's going to be a lot of different fonts that will use DashPay, hopefully one day. And what happens if some of those fonts, the L and the I, look exactly the same? So you receive 2 contact requests, and you can actually not tell who is who.
Yeah.
Who is your friend? So even if you're looking carefully at it, you just don't know. So that's what we're trying to protect the most from. And also, hopefully down the line, we can actually in our wallets do recommendations of, let's say you send me a contact request, and there's kind of like a network of people that have sent you contact requests, and they're also part of my network. We can give hints to people on, this person probably is important to you, so you should accept them.
So, or also like, which it's funny, all that social stuff is stuff that I was like brainstorming for Djembe, the Dash Twitter thingy, but that's a whole different conversation. Now, just to go back on the username squatting thing, I like 2 ideas that I think it would be great to use in conjunction, which are, first, I like the whole like grace period, like the first year while we're still getting people to use this, and then like famous people are signing up, basically to make it like valueless to squat on names if you can have some sort of a governance system decide in a semi-decentralized way who owns what, but still it's like, well, we're sorting things out, and then after this period it's just open season. And at the same time, I like that in conjunction with the sort of subdomain type of a thing, where it's just like, the Desert Lakes .dash gets taken because I'm too much of an idiot to register it ahead of time. But I'm like, you know what? I might want to do that on, do it through, let's say, Djembe. I like decide to do a little thing there, and then it's like desertlakes.djembe or whatever. And so then that like removes the scarcity of just like every username. It's like you can't do it under this because whatever DApp or whatever, basically whatever gets to work out there. That's what I would personally prefer in that kind of a situation. I think that sort of solves most things without having the whole problem of like you have to renew or lose or things like that.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to probably like, we're going to get to mainnet, right? And then we're going to start out with our initial version that I'm hoping will solve the cyber squatting and problem as best we can. And then, but hopefully, at that point, we'll have much more time to investigate, like, how do we deal with cases we didn't catch, right?
Yeah, it's quite the complicated situation when you think about it. As far as like we're solving like the universe's problems here, which I have to say, it's like like everyone talks about like decentralized. Oh, just make a decentralized version or whatever. It's like centralization solves a hell of a lot of things. It's just so easy. You just say nope, I don't like that, and you just make it right or according to yourself. The problem is, as we're seeing now, centralization is starting to, not only is it bad, but it gives a ton of responsibilities that you don't want. Like where Twitter's now feeling like it has to decide what is the accurate information on something, and they're trying to like say this is accurate, this is false, because they don't want to be liable for letting like untrue things be on the platform. And because they can change it, now all of a sudden they have to. Now they have to build this whole birdwatch Orwellian nonsense to have people snitch on each other, and like they have to do all this stuff just because now they're in charge of that. Like, oh, how are we gonna do? Whereas if if it's out of your hands, if it's decentralized, you can just like sleep well at night, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we also, it does raise some interesting conundrums that have to be addressed. Like, we kind of want to make sure that our system has some, platform has some potential decentralized moderation, right? Because there are, some terrible things that could happen, right, on a network, and you want to make sure that those things don't happen, right?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to figure out. One thing I really like is I like what Library is doing to solve this kind of stuff, because they've been in the decentralized content business for several, like 5 years now or so, and basically they let you do anything you want. However, if it's like actually illegal stuff, the portals that they run, like the centralized portals like library.tv or odyssey.com, they'll like strike it from that, and then from the core client that they release, Library Inc., they'll like strike it from that. So it'll only exist on like computers that have already downloaded the file at that time. But you could fork their client and have one without such an option and just put all the illegal nonsense you want on that, but then that's on you. And obviously that's their like radical pro free speech, but we don't want our US based company to be screwed kind of a compromise. I'm sure it's, I'm sure in reality stuff gets pretty complicated pretty fast.
Yeah, I also don't think that Dash Core Group should be the one moderating, right, the network. If we try to find a way to moderate, I'm pretty sure that it would be the Massnode network that would do the moderation, or actually give up, like, let's say like a Massnode owner doesn't want to do it, they can give out their responsibility to somebody else that will be able to moderate for them. What I'm saying, I'm not saying that each Massnode owner has to moderate, by the way. I'm just saying that they could potentially, because they are a Massnode owner, have the ability to moderate. And this system hasn't been completely flushed out yet. So we have to, we need to figure it out, write a dip, and we're getting into the 2021 stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just got a donation. $1 donation, $1 saved in BTC transaction fees. Thank you, Anonymous. Very kind of you. You could have also sent that via BTC, because I do have a Bitcoin donation address, which goes straight to a Lightning wallet, because what else are you going to do with it, right? but I'm glad that you saved it all and just went straight to the dash. Well, we should probably wrap this up. Any parting thoughts?
No, it was really nice having me on here.
Yeah, well, thanks for
Uh,
coming on, and thanks for spending the wee hours of the morning. And I assume that you'll have some sleepiness to do after this.
oh yeah, I'm going to bed.
Yeah, for sure. Well, sorry for keeping you up so long, but it's good to be on. Now, I've been doing this channel for almost a year now, and I have 936 subscribers on YouTube. And by the end of next month, I'd love to have that up to 1,000. So if you're watching this right now, which you are, if you're hearing me, come on YouTube. I already have my 7,000 plus library subscribers. So please subscribe on YouTube. See if you can get me up to that level. And so anyway, now it's time for that magical thing, not for poor Quantum here, but for everyone else, called the after party, where we just hang out and shoot the shit and talk, whatever, in a unrecorded, right? So don't worry, kind of a setting. So the way you do that is you go to the Dash Discord you go staydashy.com, gets you in there, and you just start asking out, speakeasy style. Oh, where's the after party? I want to get an after party. So yeah, and then we'll get you in, and it'll be a good time. So yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks.
I'll come.
Oh, you'll come? All right, cool.
I'll come for 15, 20 minutes.
15, 20 minutes. See what it's like. That'll be good. All right, well, thanks everyone, and we will see you in a couple weeks.